We are live. You may begin.
Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us today for this virtual town hall meeting for the FAMU faculty regarding the reopening of the university. I'm Keith Miles, Interim Director of the Office of Communications, and I'll serve as your moderator this afternoon. You will hear from President Larry Robinson, Rika Calhoun, who's chaired the committee to plan our reopening, and several members of the senior leadership team on important topics related to the university's operations going forward. Additionally, they will respond to many of the questions that have been submitted and we'll try and get to as many live questions as time will allow. To submit a question, click on the Q&A icon on your screen on Zoom. And if we don't get to answer your question this afternoon, please send them to townhall@famu.edu. That's townhall@famu.edu, and we will respond. Also, this forum will be recorded and posted to the FAMU coronavirus website located at famu.edu/coronavirus for viewing at your leisure. As we get started today, let me thank you, the faculty, for your hard work in helping the university score its highest number in terms of performance-based funding metrics with the Board of Governors. You are where the rubber hits the road, and your significant contributions are recognized. So thank you. Now it is my pleasure to introduce the president of Florida A&M University, Dr. Larry Robinson.
Well, thanks, Keith, and welcome everyone. I really want to thank the faculty for the great work that you've done in this remarkable transformation that occurred since March of this past year. And we have an opportunity this evening to talk about our reopening plan that will lay the groundwork for the great work that we will do together moving forward. I want to start by saying that the health and safety of the FAMU community is up front, is what I know concerns you. It concerns our staff, it concerns our students and their families. I want to thank Ms. Rika Calhoun and her task force for the long hours and the hard work that they put in developing our reopening plan. And I want to thank our Board of Trustees for the deep dive they took into the plan just last week, approving it for submission to the Board of Governors by the deadline of June the 12th. Just so that you know what happens next is that the Board of Governors will hear from each university in the state university system regarding their reopening plans and vote to determine how to move forward with these plans on June the 23rd of this year. I also want to point out to you that this is not a one-off session we're having this afternoon. We have planned for future engagement with our community moving forward. So I want to thank you, as Keith Miles said, for the great work that you've done, helping make significant progress, not just in the past year, but over the last several years in key performance metrics such as graduation rates that really are making a difference in the availability of funds that are needed to move this university forward. So let's get started. I want to introduce to you Ms. Rika Calhoun, Chief Compliance and Ethics Officer and Chair of our Operations Continuity Task Force, to present an overview of our plan. After Ms. Calhoun's presentation, Keith will introduce the rest of the senior leadership team panelists who will address some of the numerous questions that you've submitted to us already. And then we will, time permitting, address questions that you present to us during this Zoom town hall meeting as well. So with that, Ms. Calhoun. You're on mute, Ms. Calhoun.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. Again, I'm Rika Calhoun. I am Chief Compliance and Ethics Officer here at the university and lead for the University Operations Continuity Task Force. I will be providing an overview of the university reopening plan approved by the FAMU Board of Trustees on Thursday, June 4th. Like many universities across the country, we have spent the last months responding to the pandemic and planning for reopening. So this large-scale effort benefited from contributions of members from every administrative and academic division across the university, including input from 2 outstanding faculty senate members who served on the university task force. The approved fall reopening plan was developed contemplating the internal work of the task force, as well as response teams and external guidance from industry partners and state oversight bodies. Key assumptions during planning focused on the continued presence of the virus, the impact of comorbidities, and the importance of training and education reinforcement. The university's reopening plan also comports with the blueprint approved by the Board of Governors. The blueprint serves as an outline of critical elements for all universities in the SUS to consider. The 5 elements of the plan include a focus on a healthy campus and community environment, COVID-19 virus testing, contact tracing and surveillance, and academic program delivery. A few highlights follow. The university is continuing preparation of constituencies and spaces for the fall. Some key points in the timeline to our fall reopen focus on training and supplies, as well as a return to campus for faculty, staff, and students. The university is employing a phased approach to ensure that individuals and their spaces are prepped for return. Each administrative and academic unit must complete an employee risk assessment designed by the Office of Environmental Health and Safety to determine employee risk levels based on their workplace exposure and mitigation. The first phase scheduled to return includes senior leadership and financial administrative services on June 15th. So that's the first point in our phase return. Additional phases are scheduled to return every 2 weeks thereafter. Employees who are not in the current phase of return to campuses will continue remote work as determined by their supervisor. Individuals requesting accommodations to alter or access their workplaces, residence halls, or classrooms may request assistance from equal opportunity programs for our faculty and staff, and CEDAR for our students. Resources for Living is also available to faculty and staff for mental wellness support. Faculty, staff, and students are required to wear face coverings in buildings, classrooms, and in public spaces in which social distancing cannot be observed. The university is providing return kits to employees. These kits include 1 disposable face covering, 2 reusable face coverings, and 2 personal containers of hand sanitizer. Each kit will also contain information about university expectations regarding hand and cough hygiene, social distancing, and behavioral expectations. These kits will be distributed on the first days of each phase return through pickup points, primarily through the Lawson Center. Students will receive their kits through multiple modes as well. Hand sanitizer refill stations will be placed throughout campuses, with offices receiving 1-gallon refill containers. So those are some of our highlights. We know that the COVID-19 pandemic is an unprecedented event that is quickly changing all the time. In the backdrop of current events, which include national unrest and the 2020 hurricane season, flexibility is not only needed in planning, but through implementation. You will hear great information tonight about the things that the university is doing to prepare for your return and successful fall reopening. But we cannot do it without you. We, as members of the university community, must commit to the shared responsibility of keeping ourselves and each other as safe as possible. It is incumbent on faculty, staff, students, visitors, and vendors to adhere to policies and protocols enforcing the university's response to COVID-19, including social distancing guidelines, facial covering requirements, and hygiene and cleaning practices. We look forward to welcoming you back. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Calhoun. I want to yield for remarks from both the Faculty Senate President, Ms. Professor and Trustee Cavazos, as well as the President of the FAMU United Faculty of Florida, Dr. Hightower. In that order. Trustee Cavazos.
Yes, good afternoon, faculty, Dr. Robinson, Provost Eddington, and the leadership team. The year 2020, though only halfway through, has proven to be a landmark year. COVID-19 has brought our nation and indeed the world to its knees, temporarily shutting down and bringing our economy to a grinding halt. If that were not enough, on the heels of the COVID-19 shutdowns and closure of our schools, our nation once again has come face to face with the ugly reality of racism. This time, however, there seems to be a change in the atmosphere. People are listening, speaking up, taking notice, aligning themselves to Black Lives Matter and BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, and People of Color movement. And our mission at FAMU has never been more essential. Faculty, you matter. You make a difference. You are training young adults how to think. You are producing critical thinkers who are graduating and becoming productive members of society. Our students are successful because of you. You continue to raise the bar of excellence, and excellence is what FAMU has come to be known for. At our recent board meeting, Trustee Washington said, faculty is the lifeblood of the institution. Now with plans that you just heard from Ms. Calhoun on the reopening of the campus in the fall amid a pandemic, face covering in public is the campus new normal. Faculty was represented. They sat at the operational task force table and had a voice in the decision-making process of the reopening of the university. Shared governance, a key to an empowered university. And I thank Dr. Robinson and his leadership team for creating an environment of shared governance. As trustee and faculty president, I appreciate the clear and transparent communication that Dr. Robinson and his leadership team had with the board, the university constituents, and the community. No one can guarantee immunity from sickness, but the university has implemented best practice and has been guided by health officials and the Board of Governors in the reopening plan of the university. Faculty, this virtual town hall meeting is for you. You are provided a platform to have your questions answered and your concerns addressed about the reopening of our university. I truly encourage you to seize the moment and don't be afraid to ask your questions. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. We'd like to say 2020, as Trustee Cavazos has said, has been a very difficult year for pretty much everyone. And as she also alluded to, 2020 starts and ends with what we're doing now, planning the reopening of this great institution. The COVID-19 pandemic has wreaked havoc on our community and communities across the state of Florida, the nation, and indeed the world. And so what we do with our everyday lives in this institution is going to be critically important, not just now, but for the foreseeable future. And that's my segue into the thing that I think is most important to us all. I'm the president of the FAMU United Faculty of Florida, and it's our responsibility to negotiate the terms and conditions and protect the rights of employees, terms and conditions while interacting with the Board of Trustees. And it's incredibly important for us to be a partner and part of the solution to creating an effective reopening plan that enables the university to leverage its mission and provide leadership in terms of best practices, as well as demonstrating to the world how we operate and how we can operate. And that's not to someone or something or someone individually is not important. The big picture here is that FAMU gets it right the first time and sets an example for what others should do. So we're looking forward to having the opportunity to work with the executive leadership team and really everyone across the university. We have recently provided the leadership team with a copy of the Florida Education Association and United Faculty of Florida's recommendations as far as reopening public institutions of higher education. We think that there are some pretty important ideas, recommendations in our document, but what we want most to do is to partner and work and make sure that if and when the institution is reopened in this pandemic situation, that all faculty, all students, all employees, and the community is safe and healthy. And that in turn leads to our real issue, which is we suggest that the state of Florida should continue to invest in colleges and universities during these tough economic times. It is increasingly important for the faculty, staff, students, or for the FAMU economic engine and public colleges and universities across the state to continue to receive the correct amount of funding for their operations. If we were to not reopen, if we were to be forced to cut jobs or cut positions, we would then indeed be contributing to an economic turn down that people haven't really felt the full effect yet, in my opinion. In other words, if jobs are lost or if people aren't continue to be paid to obtain or to do their jobs, that's going to have a negative impact on any economic multiplier that one might think we would have. And so that data is not disputable. That data is what we believe in at United Faculty of Florida. And that's what we want to embrace and want to work with the powers that be in order to obtain. So long story short, we've not seen any times like this before, from an academic standpoint, from a social standpoint, from an actual institutional standpoint. And it's going to take all of us working as a team in order to make FAMU the thing that it needs to be as we move forward. I don't believe anyone has all the answers. I believe that we need to work in an attempt to obtain the best answer for us at that point in time. And the days ahead, although challenging, I know that if we work together, we'll be able to take care of it. Sorry for being so long. Thank you, President Robinson.
Thank you, Trustee Cavazos and President Hightower, for your remarks. I will turn the meeting over to our Master of Ceremonies, Mr. Keith Miles. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson, Trustee Cavazos, and Dr. Hightower. Thank you for those well thought out comments. Next, we will hear from some of the leaders from the senior leadership team, Provost Dr. Maurice Eddington, Chief Financial Officer Dr. Alan Robertson, Vice President for Student Affairs, Dr. William Hudson Jr., and Vice President and Director of Athletics, Courtney Gautier, are all here and will share their thoughts about our reopening plans and answer some of the questions. And there were quite a few that have already been submitted. So we will begin with Provost Eddington.
Thank you, Keith, and good afternoon to all the faculty. It is certainly a pleasure to have an opportunity to speak with you. And I too want to thank you for all that you have done and all that you continue to do on a daily basis to serve our students and the institution. I'm going to try to address as many of the questions I can. So forgive me for running through this, but we want to try to get as much address as we can in the time allotted. So I'll go ahead and tackle it. We are working closely with our academic deans and of course the faculty and the chairs and directors and all the programs to continue to build out an updated and enhanced schedule of course offerings for the fall. This schedule will include a combination of face-to-face courses and online courses at the undergraduate, graduate, and professional levels. And also our suite of academic support services will be available to students both remotely and in person. Some additional facts before I address some of the questions. The fall semester is scheduled to begin on time with the first day of class as indicated on the calendar, August 24th, and it's scheduled to end on time. Last day of class is December 4th. However, the plan is to proceed with that combination of online and face-to-face instruction up until Thanksgiving. And then after the Thanksgiving break, we will transition to a fully remote instruction for the last week of class. And then most final exams will be administered remotely, with the exception for a few of our professional programs that will need to administer exams in person. Summer commencement is going to be offered in a virtual format. We have received guidance from the Board of Governors instructing all members of the SUS to not have in-person summer ceremonies. With respect to fall instruction, we got a lot of questions around protective gear in the classrooms, and while in those spaces, all faculty and students will be required to wear masks at a minimum. We got questions around tuition rates for out-of-state students. The rates will continue to remain the same, meaning they're not going to be lowered for out-of students who may be taking courses remotely. And those rates are dictated by the state of Florida and the fact that the state subsidizes in-state tuition for taxpayers. And that's why out-of-state students pay additional costs. Moving on to some specific questions. Will graduate students have an opportunity to enter the labs soon? Yes, as part of the phased return to work and return to operations plan. Graduate students will work with their advisors to map out those specific dates and the plans for returning to the laboratory settings. And that work should commence in the next couple of weeks. Question, will every student on campus have at least one course that is face-to-face? We are working to build out the schedule and provide a variety of face-to-face courses. However, we can't guarantee that every student will have at least one face-to-face course. We'll have more specific information on that over the next several weeks as we continue to finalize the schedule, and we expect to announce the updated schedule to the students in early July. Student asked a question about needing accommodations because of medical concerns. The student said that they would prefer to take classes remotely. Will they be required to attend class on campus? We will work with all the students to provide as many accommodations as are needed, including students who need to take courses remotely. We'll work with them in their academic programs to try to provide the necessary accommodations. Pertaining to the situation of hybrid courses, Question about best practices, right? This person is saying, shouldn't we just teach all classes via Zoom? And as we said, we're going to offer a combination of instructional modalities and adhere to safety guidelines and to try to provide the safest environment for our students and our faculty as we can for those face-to-face classes. How are scientific lab classes that are mainly hands-on going to be operated through a hybrid course? Well, it turns out many of our labs are actually going to be offered online. The programs are able to offer those classes remotely using simulated software, et cetera. But there will be a limited number of those types of courses offered face-to-face. Again, adhering to social distancing guidelines. Okay. Listed in the proposed plan, the university states that there will be in-person classes ranging from science, labs, music, courses, etc. What majors outside of science, music, and arts fall into this category and why? So we are working with our deans and they're working with the programs to try to identify courses beyond those categories, which will include math and English and health sciences, for example. And what we want to do is to provide courses where students benefit most from being in a face-to-face environment. That's our rationale, to try to ensure that our students are positioned in the best situation to succeed academically. And so that's a primary consideration when we're working with our programs. We will list the courses that will be held in person, be released to students. Again, early July is the schedule to update the fall course offerings to provide that information. Another question, how will this affect international students? All right. International students will be able to take all of their classes in the fall online if necessary, due to lacks of the guidelines from Immigration and Department of Homeland Security. Okay, how do you plan to tackle a sudden closure mid-semester if there's a spike on campus? Well, we're working with the programs to ensure that every course is prepared to be offered online. And for those courses that are offered in person, that will allow the faculty and the students to pivot quickly to an online modality if possible. Okay. I read that the proposed plan has an extension of class hours and allowing weekend classes, etc. Can we get a deeper explanation of the courses after 5 p.m. and weekends? So as we build out the schedule, we have identified a need to offer courses after 5 p.m. and on weekends. Again, as I said earlier, the specific details will be announced once the final schedule is released in early July. Will the grading system for the fall semester be similar to this past spring? The answer is no. That modified grading policy was only in effect for the spring 2020 semester. Next question, how do you plan to accommodate students whose classes don't meet the in-person requirement and are forced to do online learning when they personally cannot handle online courses? So this question speaks to one of the reasons that we are trying to offer a suite of face-to-face courses, because there are students who perform better in a face-to-face setting, right? So we are working to offer those types of courses. Will resources such as Coleman Library and the Math Science tutorial labs be available for students to utilize this fall? Yes, those services will be available face-to-face and remotely. Will students be out for Labor Day? Yeah, the university will be closed in honor of that holiday. However, students and employees will be encouraged not to leave town. Will Thanksgiving break be earlier than previously scheduled? We are considering beginning the break a day early so that after class is in on Tuesday, that's when the start of the break will begin. And as I said earlier, transition to fully remote instruction. Will there be clear and enforceable policies put in place regarding face-to-face instruction? Yes, right. Students and faculty will be educated about the policies. There will be plastered all over the classroom facilities, and we will all be required to adhere to university regulations, including the code of conduct. Will there be clearly marked seating and minimum distance of 6 feet between students? Yes, we will adhere to the social distancing guidelines for our classroom spaces. Will there be guidelines for entering and exiting classrooms, particularly at the end of the class when crowding occurs around doors? Yeah, so we're going to work with our team to really modify the traffic flow in and out of the buildings and the classroom spaces to adhere to social distancing guidelines. Okay. Question about have we started planning for spring? We are having preliminary discussions for the spring as we continue to plan for the fall. However, details for the spring are going to be dictated by how the fall semester flows. So as we get closer to the spring, obviously we'll have more details to share as soon as they become available. Question about at-risk students, like those with asthma or diabetes, will they be forced to go to in-person classes? No, we're going to work with all of our students to provide the necessary accommodations for them as needed. International travel for faculty and staff, basically asking, hey, will we all be held to the same restrictions? And the answer is yes. We're going to, of course, follow the state and federal guidelines and CDC guidelines and recommendations around travel. So every member of our community will have to adhere to those guidelines, okay? It should be noticed that faculty, staff, and students that choose to travel internationally on their own will be required to self-isolate for 14 days following their return to campus. Question, how many courses will be offered in the fall? At the present time, we plan to offer the same number of courses and the same breadth of courses as we typically do each fall. How many students will be arriving on campus in the fall? We obviously don't have the numbers on that, right? We are tracking several indicators around enrollment. And those indicators are tracking well with our historical trends. But I think everyone can acknowledge that there's a lot of uncertainty around the fall, which will be impacted on developments that happen over the next month or two. So we are monitoring that very closely. Again, how many faculty will be teaching in the fall on campus? So the number of faculty teaching on campus is going to be dictated by the final schedule that we build out. And again, that will be announced in early July. What happens if students don't follow social distancing guidelines? What will be the punitive measures to enforce it? The students' code of conduct will be the primary tool that will govern student behavior in that respect. And it will be enforced, and there will be penalties for students that do not adhere to that. And then the related question is, what latitude do faculty have in enforcing social distancing? So faculty will be allowed to enforce that in the classroom setting, and they will be able to seek assistance from appropriate areas in dealing with situations that may occur. But the student code of conduct is going to provide the oversight and guidance for the student expectations, and students will receive instruction and guidance on a continuous basis on our expectations. And so that is the end of the pre-prepared questions, and I will turn it back over to Mr. Moderator. Oh, you're on mute.
Keith, you're muted.
Keith, you're on mute.
Okay, yeah, I caught it. Thank you, Provost Eddington. We received several questions regarding funding during this coronavirus pandemic and how those dollars will be used. Our Chief Financial Officer, Dr. Alan Robertson, is here to update us on those plans. Dr. Robertson.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Keith. Responding to COVID-19, we sent students home in the spring due to the pandemic and refunded payments for room, board, and lost revenues from our auxiliary services, such as the bookstore and other operations.
Alan, you're breaking up. Can't hear you.
Is that better? So we experienced a significant decrease in our annual budget as a result. Our auxiliary services, dining, athletics, bookstore, residence hall, those operations represent about 25% of our operating revenue stream. And they also pay not only for the operations, but they pay for the university's debt related to housing and dining. Our tuition and fees, in turn, represent about 34% of our operating revenue, and it supports our academic and administrative costs. And so if enrollment declines, it'll have a greater impact on not only our tuition and fees, but also on our auxiliary revenues. Some of the refunds that we received and the CARES Act monies related to the coronavirus are not enough to cover the lost revenue as well as the additional expenses that we're experiencing from the cost of things like masks and protective gear, disinfectant materials, and additional technology that we need for faculty and students. And so I'm going to now answer some very specific questions related to spacing in the classroom. The first question was, will there be clearly marked seating with a minimum distance of 6 feet between students, and who has assured/reviewed the spacing layouts for classes? And so our facilities group has been working with the registrar, student health, and environmental health and safety. All facilities have been surveyed to determine the maximum capacity based on social and physical distancing requirements to meet the minimum requirements of at least 6 feet. Facilities will be removed and seating arranged to reduce capacity, not only in classrooms, but also offices, lounges, and reception areas to promote social and physical distancing. Other measures that we're going to administer include adding panels to separate adjacent workspaces within identified classrooms, installing sneeze guards where they're required, removing and limiting shared workspaces, designing small rooms as single occupancy only, using floor decals and signage to direct traffic and maintain 6 feet distancing. We're going to encourage the continued use of video conferencing and implement elevator ridership limits to no more than 2 individuals in regular elevators. We're also going to prohibit large gatherings of 10 or more people, and we'll follow those guidelines as they are administered or issued from the CDC. Meetings of 2 to 10 people should be held in locations that will allow for a minimum of 6 feet distance between the participants. In addition to the phased return of employees on campus housing capacity has also been adjusted to adhere to social distancing guidelines. Our university shuttles, buses, and vans will reduce ridership capacity and use decals to demarcate distance expectations where possible, and passengers will be required to wear face coverings in transit. The next questions were all related to cleaning and sanitizing our facilities. What were the pre-COVID-19 cleaning requirements? And the answer to that is our PLM, our Plant Operations and Maintenance, basically follows the Association of Physical Plant Administrators, which is APA, standards. And we clean to the level 2 cleaning standard. I won't get into that, but it is a very high cleaning standard. What is the suggested cleaning requirement now? POM will use the same cleaning standards we did in the past, plus we're adding the new guidelines and standards that are being promulgated by the Center for Disease Control, the CDC. So in preparation for the fall semester and returning students, faculty, staff, we will continue to follow the CDC guidelines. We are focused on areas with high use and cleaning all touch surfaces such as door handles, toilets, countertops, stairways, rails, paper towel dispensers, urinals, etc. And we want to protect our people to ensure that in addition to protecting our faculty and staff, we're also protecting our facilities folks and providing gloves and what's called PPE, protective devices, so that they are safe as well. Let's see. We have cleaned most of the major buildings on campus already. And we continue to sanitize. We're employing various sanitization and disinfection methods, including fogging, electrostatic spraying, and manual disinfection. Our plant operation and maintenance will increase their cleaning routines to wipe down all surfaces. We're also going to more frequently empty the trash containers, as well as provide hand sanitizers to all employees. There are kits, I don't know whether anybody talked about that, but there are kits being put together which include disposable masks, also reusable masks, and hand sanitizers, personal size, for every faculty, staff, and student. Also, let's see, who monitors and how is it made known to employees and what frequency? So our POM will continue to manage the overall cleaning and sanitizing efforts in collaboration with student health, environmental health, and safety. And finally, UV treated airflow. One of the things that we're doing, we have over 280 AHUs, air handling units on campus, and we're installing within those a UVC lighting system, which basically will sanitize the air as it flows through the system. And those UV lights basically destroy any living organisms, including the coronavirus. And finally, there's a question related to HR. If someone comes to work sick, what is the appropriate response of the supervisor, and how is the leave carried? First, employees are encouraged not to come to work sick and should follow the guidelines, current guidelines for the use of sick leave. So notification to the supervisor and also the supervisor's approval. If the employee comes to work and shows signs of COVID-19, the supervisor should send that employee home and to consult with their healthcare provider. The supervisor should then contact Student Health Services for further guidance. If the employee is sent home due to COVID-19 symptoms, administrative leave may be used for 14 calendar days of quarantine. If someone voluntarily takes this is the next question, if someone voluntarily takes the COVID-19 test, are they able to come to work before they get the results? If not, how is their leave carried while they wait for the results? First, all employees are encouraged to be tested for COVID-19 at Bragg Stadium or from their healthcare provider prior to scheduled return to work. Testing at Bragg is free of charge, and individuals tested for COVID-19 are requested to self-quarantine until they receive their test results. The current time period for the results is typically 3 to 5 days. Employees who wait to be tested after their scheduled return to work date will be required to use their accrued sick leave during that time period. And then my last question is, well, I think Dr. Eddington answered the international question. And then how do we handle the onboarding of new employees? We will continue to follow the current process for onboarding of new employees. This process will remain unchanged. If you have any questions, you may contact our Human Resources Department. Keith, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Robertson. We received many questions on housing, students returning to campus, access to campus, recruitment, dining services, and other student-related issues. Dr. William Hudson Jr., Vice President for Student Affairs, will address many of those concerns.
Good evening, everyone. I echo the comments by Dr. Robinson, Provost Eddington, Vice President Robertson, Trustee Cavazos, and everyone else. I would like to personally thank the faculty, and Dr. Roscoe Hightower. I would personally like to thank the faculty. As an instructor in the School of Allied Health, I understand the passion, the dedication, the perseverance, and the flexibility utilized during this COVID-19 epidemic. I have several topics as well from prepared questions that I will provide information on. In order to comply with CDC and local requirements for physical distancing, the university has converted on-campus housing double occupancy rooms to single occupancy. University housing is assigned on a first-come, first-served basis. Approximately 1,905 residence hall rooms are available, which include first-time students and returning students who selected on-campus housing during the early application period starting in November of 2019 and were awarded housing. Students who wish to opt out of housing may do so without penalty by June 22nd, 2020 at 5:00 p.m. Students assigned housing have been notified via university email. Students who apply for campus housing and are on the wait list will be notified once vacancies occur. Students who do not have the ability to secure on-campus or off-campus housing will have the option to take a full course load online. And students who do not receive university housing will receive a refund of the $200 deposit. Move-in will be August 15th and August 18th based on the student's major. New student orientation will be held on August 16th through the 18th and August 19th through the 21st, which are also major specific. This information can be found at the new student orientation website, and students have received communication through the university official mode of communication, their FAMU email. Students should check their email daily for updates and to be informed on any changes that may occur. Students will move out of the residence hall on Wednesday, November 25th, unless they have documented extenuating circumstances prior to the first day of class. The housing rate has been prorated and is based on halls closing at the Thanksgiving break, unless students are residing in the university apartments and have extenuating circumstances, which will require them to stay on campus through the end of the term, which is December 13th. The villages will remain a two-person suite as they have separate bedrooms. That was a question that I got from many faculty as well. Students will be allowed to have vehicles on campus. However, they must register all vehicles with the Department of Campus Safety and Security. The shuttle buses will continue to run per the schedule. We will continue to encourage students to download and utilize the FAMU app to ensure they are receiving real-time information on arrival and departure of shuttles. There will be a lower number of riders for the fall semester, and we will increase our frequency of shuttle frequency to ensure students have a positive commute. Now, the questions concerning the Student Code of Conduct. The University Student Code of Conduct applies to student behavior on and off campus. Students are expected to comply with all state and federal laws, rules, and local ordinance and orders. Failure to do so constitutes a violation of Regulation 2.012 and will be addressed appropriately. We do hope students will consider the risk of exposure and potential risk to their loved ones if they do not comply with CDC guidelines. As we have a lot of faculty who are also advisors to student groups and organizations, I wanted to touch on student activities. The Everson Student Union Office of Student Activities will be conducting virtual programming throughout the summer and fall terms. Programming information will be sent via FAMU Info as well as the iStrike portal. The Everson Student Union Office of Student Activities has asked advisors and chapter offices to develop a fully virtual plan for recruitment for clubs and organizations. Intake for fraternity and sorority life will rely solely on the national headquarters guidelines for virtual intake. Fraternities and sororities will not be permitted to perform in-person membership intake until after consultation with all stakeholders, including student health services. Thank you for your continued services to students and staff. I'm available to answer any questions if needed later. Keith, back to you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Hudson. Many questions we received were about athletic events and inquiring about what are the plans for the fall. The Vice President and Director of Athletics, Courtney Gautier, joins us with an update.
Thanks, Keith. I appreciate your time and enjoying serving on the panel this evening. A lot of questions over the past couple of weeks about what athletics will look like. In particular, I think one of the most popular is, will there be homecoming? And the answer to that is all indications look like there will be homecoming. The NCAA and the MEAC are working to create frameworks for us to participate in fall sports, including football. However, we'd be totally remiss if we did not acknowledge the fact that homecoming will look and feel a little bit different than it has in the past. And so what are some of those parameters for us in hosting events in the football stadium? We will have a limited capacity. And so the way to really get your seat in Bragg Memorial Stadium is to renew your season tickets. The deadline is July 15th. Become a Rattler Athletic Fund member and renew your Investing in Champions package. Because again, we're going to start with priorities in those levels for people to be reintroduced into our stadiums and for athletic events. We do have some preliminary plans that we're working through right now to reintroduce student athletes back into the campus population in a phased process. And working through that, we hope to have some of our student athletes back as early as the beginning of July. And so, all indications look that way. Some of the ancillary events around homecoming are still being discussed and are in a to be determined status, in regards to what formats or the arrangement in which we will have those events. But we will follow our campus leadership team's guidelines associated with any events that we have in the fall, including homecoming. Some additional questions, will we have sports? And so again, I think football is that first indicator that we're really, that everyone's really excited about. And so we're planning on that. We actually had a meeting with all of the head coaches earlier today to talk about their teams and the process associated with that. All of our student athletes will go through a testing process but when coming back on campus, and we will try to control those environments as best we can. To Dr. Robertson's point, we have several protocols in place regarding a safe reopen that includes, heavy sanitation and several other practices to make sure that we keep the health and safety of our student athletes our #1 priority. And so we are looking forward to the fall. Our future of FAMU of athletics is very, very bright. Our student athletes are eager to get back on campus and to serve our university this fall. Thanks, Keith.
Thank you, VP and AD Gautier. The faculty has also been very supportive in fundraising efforts to help our students during this pandemic. Vice President of the FAMU Foundation and Dean of the School of Business, Dr. Shante Friday-Stroud, thanks you for your support and provides this update.
Good afternoon, Mr. Miles, and to everyone on the panel and all that are listening. We want to support and donations that you have made to FAMU Cares and all other accounts with the university. These dollars are definitely allowing us to still be able to provide laptops for our students. We are finding as students are navigating the summer semester, learning that they have to use lockdown browser, that now many of them are realizing either the Chromebooks that they had or their cell phone devices that many of them were using before to navigate courses, that's not sufficient. So we are still receiving requests for laptops for students. Actually just filled a couple requests today for students who are locally in Tallahassee. We try to work with Academic Affairs to allow students to check out laptops. That's a partnership with, Academic Affairs and ITS. And then also for students who let their deans know, or faculty who let their deans know that students need laptops, the deans can submit laptop requests through FAMU Cares, and we can have laptops mailed to students. Recognizing that laptops that are mailed to students typically have about a 2 to 3 week lead time before they are actually delivered to the student's home. And that is because of the processing time. I personally process those, and I do that every Friday. And then the process for getting them ordered, paid for, and then shipped to the students, again, takes about 2 to 3 weeks. So if you come across students who you find still have a need for laptops, please share all of their information, their name, student ID number, telephone number, and their mailing address with your dean, such that they can enter the student's information into our FAMU Cares survey, and we can process that. But what I will say is we all have to be thankful that we are still continuing to get paychecks, that we're still afforded the opportunity to work. And, you know, anything that you can give, no matter how large or small, will go a long way to helping to provide support for our students during this pandemic. And with that, again, I just want to say thank you for all that you have done so far, all that you're continuing to do, and all that we know you will do to support not only our students, but make sure that FAMU stays alive and well for many, many decades and centuries to come. So thank you again. Back to you, Mr. Miles.
And thank you, Dr. Friday Stroud. Now we will answer some of the questions that you've sent during this town hall meeting. Remember, the recording of this event will be posted to the FAMU coronavirus website. So if you tuned in late and maybe missed the answer to your question, you can always go to famu.edu/coronavirus to review at your leisure and to hear some of the remarks that you may have covered some of your concerns. And so let's go to some of the live questions. Dr. Maurice Eddington will answer this one. Will postdoctoral fellows and research associates go to their research labs in the early stages? And the follow-up is, research activities seem to be suffering. So they seem to need to get into those labs, Dr. Eddington.
Yeah, no, thank you, Keith. Yeah, we understand and acknowledge that our research enterprise has slowed down dramatically during this time. And as we begin to transition back to work and back to campus, we certainly will work with our faculty researchers as well as their postdocs and research associates to transition back. So starting with wave 2 of the plan, we will begin to allow those individuals to come back to the labs. And so the postdocs should work with their faculty research advisors, as well as the academic deans in those areas to begin to map out the timeline. But certainly we want them to be able to come back as soon as possible, as safely as possible.
Thank you, Dr. Eddington. We have 3 questions that are related to testing for the coronavirus. Will there be temperature checks daily for students, faculty, and staff? And Dr. Hudson, I don't know if Tanya Tatum is on the line, but that might be a good question.
Yes, Tanya's on the line, and I'll allow her to answer that question. Tanya?
Good evening, everyone. As far as temperature checks, we are not implementing mandatory temperature checks for all faculty, students, and staff. However, we will have them on a mandatory basis in certain areas of high risk. If there are departments that would like to implement temperature checks in their areas, that's something that they will be able to do. We have purchased a number of infrared thermometers in which we'll be able to make sure that you have the supplies that you need to do that. And I think that answers that question.
Okay.
Related to that, Keith, if I might, there's another question about our testing protocols that you might expand on. Specifically, the question reads as follows. Let me try to find it. Again, let's see here. How will periodic testing, contact tracing, and isolation be handled among students? And so I know we have a plan for that, Ms. Tatum or Ms. Calhoun, if you would expand and also ask a similar question about faculty and staff.
Okay. We do have and we'll have a testing program in place for faculty, students, and staff, and we're strongly encouraging everyone to make sure they get tested prior to their return to campus. We are very fortunate in having the COVID testing site open at Bragg Stadium. It allows us easy access and individuals can be tested at no charge. And I recently found out today that we now have about a 2-day turnaround time in order to get those results back. So that will be available for faculty, staff, and students. Individuals that are in higher risk areas, such as the clinic, plant operations, athletics, campus housing will be identified for testing on a more frequent basis, as well as some of our student groups. Students that might be medically vulnerable, individuals that are symptomatic or have been exposed. Those are individuals that we will also have testing available more frequently. But we really hope to work with everyone to make sure that we have testing available and encourage people to be tested as they need.
So just to finish that off, we do have a plan for quarantine and isolation for students who are living in our campus residence halls. If you want to expand on that a bit, Ms. Tatum, as well.
Yes, we do. Thank you. We have identified an entire complex that we will have available for students that are living in campus housing who may need to self-quarantine if they have been exposed to someone who has COVID-19, or that need to self-isolate if they have been diagnosed with COVID-19. We have a plan to work with the health department to make sure that we are identifying those individuals as quickly as possible, as well as any contacts that they may have. So that we want to be able to be aggressive about that and protect the campus as much as possible. Students that are in quarantine or self-isolation will be provided meals. They will have materials and supplies available to them in those apartments. And we will have daily nursing checks so that they have the supports and additional services that they need to still keep up with their classes if they're able to. And we want to make sure that they have everything that they need to be successful.
And as for contact tracing is the purview of the Department of Health by Florida statute, but we will be supplementing their efforts through information sharing and the work of our employees. We'll be working with the department as contact tracers.
I do want to emphasize to everyone, and I hope you share this with your family and friends, is that the COVID-19 test site is available to anyone right now. Right, perhaps not today because I believe it closed because of the inclement weather. However, anyone at any time is welcome to go to that site and be tested. Currently, I believe as of yesterday, we have exceeded 9,500 tests taken at that site. You know, we can do up to 400 tests a day. And so there's a lot of room for you, your family members and others to get tested now and to get tested, frequently. But our plan will have more specificity around it. But I just want to let you know, all of the faculty on this call know that it's available to you right now.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Robinson, Tanya, and Rika for those responses. Another question, will on-campus parking be prorated for the fall for faculty and staff? And I think that's an Alan Robertson question.
Bill Hudson.
Yeah, and at this moment, no, it will not be prorated for the fall.
Okay, thank you. What accommodations will be made for faculty members that are caring for a family member that has underlying health conditions that may make them a risk for if infected by COVID-19?
Yeah, I mean, I can take that one. Yeah, we have existing university guidelines and procedures that afford accommodations to employees, and those will certainly apply to faculty in that specific type of situation. So those faculty will have an opportunity to take advantage of what exists currently at the institution.
Okay, another question that was asked about the FAMU satellite campuses and how will testing be provided for those parts of the university?
We have identified community testing sites that are near each of our satellite locations in our College of Law. And those sites are in Appendix A of the plan, but we can provide that information to anyone who needs it.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Rika. Thank you, Rika Calhoun, for that response. As you heard Dr. Robinson say earlier, he is encouraging everyone to go and be tested at the Bragg Stadium site. Here's a question: with the Bragg Stadium site supposed to close on June 15th, will it be extended?
This is Tanya. I can go ahead and answer that. We've had very positive feedback from the Department of Health and the Department of Emergency Management, and we anticipate that testing site will be open through August at this point in time, but we will keep everyone posted as we get confirmation of the schedule, but it is not anticipated to close up until this fall.
Okay, thank you, Tanya. Will there be a special sick leave pool for faculty who get ill?
That's an HR question.
It is, right now, there is no pool set up for that, but that is something that we could pursue if people want to volunteer either their sick or personal time to another employee. We could create a pool.
There are also expansions of the FMLA and other administrative leave options or leave options that will allow employees to take extended leave if needed based on or related to COVID-19. So those are other tools as well.
Thank you very much. There are students who can't tolerate, well, I just lost my question, who can't tolerate wearing face masks. What is the plan for them?
Yeah, so we're gonna work with our students on a case-by-case basis to try to make sure that they're able to participate in their courses this semester. So when we encounter those situations, the academic programs should work out a plan to try to accommodate those type of students. I think first and foremost is making sure that those students who are on campus and in the classroom spaces are adhering to the safety guidelines, right? So if we do have students who are unable to do that, we're going to have to work with them to find other ways to help them matriculate.
Okay. Another question, will more mental health providers be hired for the fall 2020 semester?
Yes, we are hiring another mental health provider, and we've actually added another one while we've been during this crisis. But also, telemental health will be available for students as well, as it has been through this previous term.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hudson. Will desk shields be installed in the classrooms?
Yes, those will be installed in the classrooms where there is a close proximity to the students. We also purchased a limited number of head shields in the form of a hat type of apparatus. So those are available as well.
Here's a question. Would staff be able to refuse coming in if they can perform all of their job duties remotely for fear of their safety?
That is really a supervisor question, and it depends on their job function, how critical it is, and then also if they have to have or do have a student or faculty or staff interface. But it ultimately will be left up to the supervisor. We are keeping social distance.
Hello, Alan, did we lose you there?
I think we did.
Okay, all right. Here's a question. What about costs and the stage of budgetary adjustments? That might be an Alan Robertson question too. So we may have to wait until we can get Alan back online to ask that question.
But I do want to respond to it in general, although we can get the specifics from Alan, that this is a very expensive plan that we have to implement. And we think, however, is worth the investment, because I believe what's at stake is the future of the university. So we will spend literally millions of dollars to implement this plan. And I think for every student and faculty member or staff who's not exposed to this virus, that's a worthwhile investment. Okay. So Alan, the specifics around the question was around the expense associated with this plan. I just told them in general, it's a very expensive plan. You may have a bit more specifics around the actual cost.
Okay. Sorry about that. Battery died.
Okay, no problem. Thank you for rejoining. A large proportion of our students will be returning from some hotspots or areas in Florida that have much higher infection rates than Leon County. And many of the students have participated in protests with limited distancing. Will returning students be required to isolate for 14 days if they come to campus and test negative? Can isolation be prevented?
Tanya can answer that as well.
Yeah, maybe a Tanya Tatum question.
Okay, this is Tanya. We are not requiring students to quarantine or isolate prior to coming to campus. However, we will certainly be recommending that they monitor and their actions prior to their return. And we have reached out to a lot of the individuals who are participating in the protests, and we already have quite a few of them coming in being tested. And so we wanted to develop relationships with that early on. And I think we've been pretty successful with that. So we will be communicating with students on a regular basis and really encouraging them to watch what they're doing and to kind of temper their behaviors and their wanderings prior to their return to campus.
Thank you, Tanya. This may be for Dr. Eddington. Will there or when would be a good time for dry runs for classroom logistics?
Yeah, so those details are going to be worked out over the next several weeks as we begin to go and look and inspect the specific rooms and make final decisions on which classrooms will be used for face-to-face instruction. So, you know, sometime probably mid to late July in terms of specific logistics and spacing in some of those classrooms.
Okay. All right, thank you. This is about personal protection equipment, protective equipment that will probably be distributed on campus. In some cases, will they be latex free? And in some cases, what happens if a person has a latex allergy?
I'm sure we can get some non-latex gloves, but typically that's not part of the PPE that we would normally pass out. When we say personal protective equipment, we're basically talking about masks for faculty, staff, and students.
Well, Alan, since you're back and we have you there, what about costs and the stage of budgetary adjustments that will be necessary to bring about changes in the plan in terms of reopening?
Well, we're not going to know exactly where we are from an enrollment standpoint, probably until early September. And so between the uncertainties around the state budget, around enrollment, around auxiliary revenues, we won't be able to definitively say what's required to balance the budget until those pieces stop moving.
Thank you very much. This one I think is for Dr. Eddington. Will faculty be required to return earlier than the normal 2 weeks prior to the beginning of classes?
Well, we're going to use that time in August to provide training for faculty, but it will be done remotely. And then we also, of course, will have our faculty planning conference, which will also be done remotely. And so in terms of the term requiring faculty to come, I think it's better to explain it as we prepare for the fall, right, on a individualized basis, faculty who need to come to campus to facilitate instruction will be allowed to do that accordingly, right? I mean, I don't envision some mass requirement that all faculty come back on campus by a certain date, right? We're going to work to transition back in a way that allows us to teach and offer the courses. And given that those courses are going to be offered by a combination of modalities, it's going to be different scenarios for individual faculty, right? It's going to be based on what they're expected to do in the fall semester. And again, just from the discussions and planning that's taking place on a daily basis with the deans, it's going to vary across the campus, program by program, college and school by college and school.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Eddington. And that will do it for our live questions. Remember, you can also always send your questions if we did not answer your question to townhall@famu.edu, and we will get a response for you. And also, if you missed part of the town hall, you can go to famu.edu/coronavirus for viewing at your leisure. And at this time now, we'll toss it to Dr. Robinson for closing remarks.
Well, thank you, Keith, and all of you who provided responses to questions submitted, as well as questions that we've taken live this afternoon. And of course, I want to thank the 350 or so of you who signed on to join us for this virtual town hall. You know, since the last time we talked with regard to the pandemic, some things have improved, some things have not. One thing that I do want to point out to you that I'm really concerned about, and I know you are as well, is that there are over 40 million people in this country who have been unemployed or their employment disrupted in some way by this pandemic. And I fear that a lot of those are individuals in the socioeconomic category of many of our students. And I do believe then that the impact that they're going to see will not only manifest itself in the next weeks and few months, but it might be a much longer period of time, because as you know, as the economy recovers, those folks who are in those difficult categories of the budget of the socioeconomic realm take the longest to recover. So back to a point that Dr. Friday Stroud made, that we are really all privileged to be working. And I think that's what we're trying to do here, is to create an environment where together we give our students every reason to continue their education at Florida A&M University, because for a whole lot of reasons, students, economic reasons, concerns about coming or leaving home, whether they're from a so-called hotspot or from a place that has a minimal number of cases of COVID-19, there are serious concerns about returning to college campuses throughout the nation. This plan, I think, gives them good reason to return under the guidelines they're in, to help ensure that they are going to be safe and you're going to be safe for this fall semester and working up to the fall semester. And so I just want to thank you for what you've done and what you will continue to do to make FAMU sort of an example of how this can be done, and that can be done successfully. And the only way to do that is by us working together. And just as we worked through the first part of this, how we changed the operations, transformed them actually, I think this is another transformational moment in terms of our operations, but I do believe we will once again get through this together. So I just want to thank you for taking the time to spend with us this afternoon. And as Keith Miles pointed out, this is not the last time we will talk. And because we know that there are a lot of questions that may arise as time develops around the pandemic and around this plan. So thank you so much for your active participation this evening. And I know we can count on you to be the Raptors that we've always been in supporting this great institution in the future. So thank you very much. Please stay safe, be vigilant, and take care of yourselves and your families. Thank you very much. Keith?
Thank you, Dr. Robinson, and to all of the panelists participating in this faculty virtual town hall, providing vital information to the faculty and the university community. Your respective leadership has propelled FAMU into the national spotlight on how we have responded to this pandemic. So let me thank once again the FAMU Institutional Technology team, and particularly Michael Simmons for their technology and support and expertise, and our Office of Communication staff for all of your work during this crisis as well. One last reminder, this town hall will be posted on famu.edu/coronavirus for you to review later. And our next virtual town hall meeting will be June 25th at 3 p.m. Mark your calendars, June 25th at 3 p.m. Finally, thank you to the faculty for participating in an effort to provide you with accurate information. Please stay safe and good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
See you.